The massive colony ship descended through the swirling clouds of the alien planet. Inside, 300 humans waited nervously. After a long journey across the stars, they were about to set foot on their new home. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the front viewport, watching the landscape come into view. Rolling hills covered in purple vegetation stretched as far as she could see. Strange rock formations jutted up here and there, twisting into odd shapes. 2 suns hung in the pale green sky. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered. She turned to her second-in-command, Marcus. "Let's hope it's as welcoming as it looks." Marcus nodded, his face tight with worry. The initial scans look good, but you never know what surprises a new world might hold. The ship touched down with a soft thud. Sarah took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. It was time to lead her people into their new life. As the main doors opened, Sarah was the first to step out. The air was thick and humid, with a slightly sweet smell. She breathed deeply, relieved that it seemed safe to inhale. The colonists filed out behind her, their eyes wide as they took in their surroundings. Children pointed excitedly at the strange plants and colorful flying creatures that darted through the air. Dr. Amelia Jones, the mission's chief scientist, was already scanning the environment with her devices. "Oxygen levels are good," she reported. "No obvious toxins in the air, but we'll need to run more tests before we can be sure it's all safe." Sarah nodded. "All right, people, let's get to work. We need to set up the temporary shelters before nightfall." The colonists sprang into action, unloading supplies and beginning to assemble the prefab structures that would house them for the first few weeks. Sarah walked among them, offering encouragement and pitching in where needed. As the first sun began to set, casting an orange glow across the landscape, most of the shelters were in place. Sarah allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. They were off to a good start, but her relief was short-lived. A loud rumbling sound filled the air, and the ground began to shake beneath their feet. "Earthquake," someone shouted. Sarah grabbed onto a nearby shelter to steady herself. "Everyone stay calm," she called out. "Get away from anything that could fall." The shaking lasted for nearly a minute before subsiding. As the dust settled, Sarah did a quick head count. To her relief, everyone seemed to be unharmed. Dr. Jones approached, her face pale. "Captain, my instruments are picking up some strange readings. That wasn't a normal earthquake. There's something unusual about this planet's geological makeup." Sarah frowned. "What do you mean, unusual?" Before the scientist could answer, a piercing shriek split the air. The colonists looked up to see a massive winged creature swooping down towards them. Its leathery wings spanned at least 20 feet, and razor-sharp talons extended from its feet. "Take cover," Sarah yelled. The colonists scrambled for the shelters as the beast dove at them. Marcus appeared at Sarah's side, the laser rifle in his hands. He took aim and fired, striking the creature's wing. It screeched in pain and veered off, disappearing into the gathering darkness. Silence fell over the camp. Sarah could hear the rapid breathing of the scared colonists around her. "Is everyone okay?" she called out. A chorus of shaky affirmatives answered her. Marcus lowered his rifle, his face grim. "I don't think this planet is as welcoming as we hoped, Captain." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. They had prepared for challenges, but the reality of their situation was sinking in. This world was alien and potentially very dangerous. They would have to be constantly on guard. As the second sun dipped below the horizon, plunging the landscape into an eerie twilight, Sarah gathered her leadership team. "All right," she said, her voice firm. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, but we're humanity's best hope for a new beginning. Whatever this planet throws at us, we'll face it together. We'll adapt, we'll learn, and we'll survive." The others nodded, drawing strength from her words. As they dispersed to check on the rest of the colonists, Sarah looked out at the alien world around them, beautiful but deadly, full of unknown dangers. This was just the beginning of their struggle to make a home here, but humans had always been good at beating the odds. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Sarah was determined that they would overcome them. The night grew darker, and strange calls echoed in the distance. The first day on their new world was over. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. As the twin suns rose on their fifth day on the alien planet, Sarah led a small team of explorers into the purple forests surrounding their camp. They moved cautiously, eyes and ears alert for any signs of danger. "Look at this," Dr. Jones called out, kneeling beside a strange plant. Its leaves were shaped like stars, and they seemed to glow faintly. "I've never seen anything like it." Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the bushes ahead. The team froze, hands moving to their weapons. Sarah held up a hand, signaling them to wait. A figure emerged from the undergrowth. It was tall and slender, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like polished metal. 2 large black eyes blinked at the humans curiously. "First contact," Sarah breathed. She stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show she meant no harm. "Hello," she said clearly. "We come in peace." The alien tilted its head, then made a series of clicks and whistles. Sarah looked to Dr. Chen, their linguist, who shrugged helplessly. "It might take time to understand their language," Dr. Chen explained. The alien pointed at Sarah, then at itself, then swept its arm to indicate the forest around them. It repeated the gesture several times. "I think," Marcus said slowly, "it's trying to tell us this is its home." Sarah nodded. "We need to show we respect that." She mimicked the alien's gesture, then pointed back towards their camp. She hoped the message was clear. "We have a home too, but we acknowledge this is yours." The alien seemed to understand. It made a sound that might have been a laugh, then beckoned for the humans to follow it. As they walked deeper into the forest, more aliens appeared. They watched the humans with a mix of curiosity and caution. Some of the younger ones darted close to touch the stranger's clothes or hair before scampering away. The group arrived at a clearing where a collection of shimmering structures stood. They looked like they were made of the same metallic substance as the alien skin. "It's beautiful," Sarah said, gazing around in wonder. One of the aliens approached, carrying what looked like a fruit. It offered it to Sarah with a gesture that seemed friendly. Sarah hesitated, then took the fruit. She knew eating alien food could be dangerous, but refusing might be seen as an insult. She took a small bite. The taste exploded in her mouth, sweet and tangy, and unlike anything she'd ever experienced. She smiled at the alien and nodded her thanks. For the next few hours, the humans and aliens attempted to communicate. Progress was slow, but by the end of the day, they had managed to exchange a few basic concepts. As the team prepared to head back to their camp, the lead alien, who they had started calling Shimmer, made an urgent series of gestures. It pointed to the sky, then made a motion like something falling. Dr. Chen frowned. I think it's trying to warn us about something." Just then, the ground began to shake. It was much stronger than the quake they had felt on their first day. Shimmer grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her towards one of the metallic structures. The other aliens were ushering the rest of the team to shelter as well. Once inside, Sarah watched in amazement as the structure seemed to mold itself around them, forming a protective cocoon. Through a small window, she could see rocks and trees falling outside as the quake intensified. After several tense minutes, the shaking stopped. Shimmer's structure unwrapped itself, and they stepped out to survey the damage. Many trees had fallen, and the landscape had changed, but the aliens' homes stood undamaged. Shimmer made more urgent gestures, pointing to the sky again. "I think," Sarah said slowly, "they're trying to tell us that this is normal here, that the planet is unstable." Dr. Jones nodded, her face pale. "If these quakes are common, and there are other dangers we haven't seen yet, Captain, this planet might be more hostile than we thought." Sarah looked around at the alien settlement, then back towards where their own camp lay. They had come so far, hoped for so much, but now it seemed their new home might be trying to kill them. "We need to learn more," she said firmly. "We need to understand this world and its dangers. And we need to learn from the aliens. They figured out how to survive here. As they made their way back to camp, Sarah's mind raced with plans. They would need to adapt quickly if they wanted to survive. But humans were good at adapting. They had to be, if they wanted to be the last species standing on this hostile planet. 2 weeks after their first contact with the aliens, whom they now called the Shimmers, Sarah called an urgent meeting of the colony's leadership. The mood was tense as they gathered in the newly constructed meeting hall. "We have a problem," Sarah began, her face grim. "Dr. Jones and our Shimmer friends have made a disturbing discovery." Dr. Jones stood up, her usual excitement replaced by worry. "We've been analyzing the planet's geological and atmospheric data. The Shimmers have been helping us understand their own records. It's not good news." She tapped a device, and a holographic image of the planet appeared above the table. Red lines crisscrossed its surface. "These lines represent fault lines," Dr. Jones explained. "There are far more than we initially thought, and they're incredibly active. But that's not the worst part." The image changed, showing a simulation of the planet's orbit. "In about 6 months, this world will pass through a dense asteroid field. Combined with the unstable geology, it could trigger planet-wide disasters. Massive earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, possibly even changes to the atmosphere." A heavy silence fell over the room. Marcus was the first to speak up. "How bad are we talking?" Dr. Jones sighed. "Bad enough that the Shimmers are planning to leave the planet. Apparently, this happens every few hundred years. They have ships that can carry their entire population to safety until the danger passes." Sarah looked around the table, seeing the fear in her people's eyes. "We need to decide what we're going to do. We can try to evacuate. The colony ship could probably make it back to Earth, or we can try to weather the storm here." Debate erupted immediately. Some argued passionately for leaving, saying the risk was too great. Others insisted they could find a way to survive, that they couldn't give up on their new home so quickly. As the argument grew heated, a soft chime sounded. Everyone turned to see a group of Shimmers entering the hall. Their leader, whom the humans had named Silver, stepped forward. Using the simple sign language they had developed, Silver communicated an offer. The Shimmers would help the humans build protective shelters like their own, if they chose to stay. But they also offered to take some humans with them when they evacuated, to ensure at least some would survive if the worst happened. Sarah translated for the others, then called for a vote. The result was close, but in the end, the decision was made. They would stay. "We didn't come all this way just to turn back at the first sign of trouble," Sarah announced. "We'll take the Shimmers' offer of help for those who want to leave, but for the rest of us, we'll face this challenge head-on." Over the next few months, the colony was a flurry of activity. With the Shimmers' help, they began constructing dome shelters that could withstand incredible forces. They dug deep wells and stored supplies. Scientists worked around the clock to predict where the safest areas would be. Other alien species on the planet began to leave. Strange ships filled the skies as they departed. Each day, the humans would look up and see fewer and fewer of their alien neighbors. A small group of humans, mostly families with young children, chose to leave with the Shimmers. The day of their departure was emotional, filled with tearful goodbyes and promises to reunite. As the final weeks approached, Sarah stood on a hill overlooking the colony. The dome shelters gleamed in the light of the setting suns. Nearby, Marcus joined her. "Do you think we made the right choice?" he asked quietly. Sarah was silent for a moment. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I do know that if anyone can survive this, it's us. Humans have faced extinction before. We've adapted to every environment Earth could throw at us. This is just our next great challenge." Marcus nodded. "Well, if we're going to be the last species standing on this rock, we better make it count." Sarah managed to smile. "That's the spirit. Now let's get back to work. We've got a planet to survive." As they walked back to the colony, the first faint tremors began to shake the ground. The real test was about to begin. The day of the great exodus arrived with an eerie calm. The sky was filled with ships of various alien species, all fleeing the impending disaster. Sarah watched from the command center as vessel after vessel disappeared into the stars. "Last call for evacuation," Marcus announced, his voice tight. "Anyone who wants to leave with the Shimmers needs to report to the landing pad now." A small group of colonists, mostly young families and the elderly, made their way to the waiting Shimmer ship. Tearful goodbyes were exchanged as they boarded. Silver, the Shimmer leader, approached Sarah one last time. Using their simple sign language, it conveyed a message. "You are brave, but perhaps unwise. We hope to find you here when we return." Sarah nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "Safe travels, friend. Thank you for everything." As the last ship lifted off, a heavy silence fell over the remaining colonists. Out of the original 300, only 150 had chosen to stay. "All right, people," Sarah called out, her voice strong despite her fears. "We've prepared for this. Let's get to our assigned shelters." The colonists moved quickly, gathering last-minute supplies and heading to the reinforced domes they'd built with Shimmer technology. Each dome could house 50 people and was stocked with enough food and water to last months. Sarah, Marcus, and Dr. Jones took their places in the command dome. From here, they could monitor the entire colony and the planet's conditions. As the last person entered their shelter, the first tremors began. Small at first, but growing stronger by the minute. "Here we go," Dr. Jones said, her eyes glued to the monitors. "The planet's entering the asteroid field now." The shaking intensified. Outside, they could hear the sound of rocks falling and trees breaking. The dome swayed but held firm. "Dome 2 reporting some stress on the eastern side," Marcus called out, "but it's within acceptable limits." Hour after hour passed, each bringing new challenges. Sometimes the ground would shake so hard they could barely stand. Other times, strange energy pulses would sweep across the planet, interfering with their equipment. Through it all, the humans endured. They told stories to distract scared children, sang songs to boost morale, and worked tirelessly to keep their systems running. On the third day, a massive asteroid struck the planet not far from their location. The impact was so strong it knocked out power in 2 of the domes. "We need to get those systems back online," Sarah said, strapping on a protective suit. "The air filters won't work without power." "It's too dangerous out there," Marcus protested. Sarah fixed him with a determined look. "We didn't come this far to let our people suffocate. I'm going." Despite the raging storm outside, Sarah made her way to the affected domes. Dodging falling debris and fighting against howling winds, she managed to reach the backup generators and get them running. As she stumbled back into the command dome, exhausted but triumphant, she was met with cheers from her team. "That's why you're the captain," Dr. Jones said with a grin. Days turned into weeks. The constant barrage of asteroids and geological instability took its toll. 2 of their smaller domes collapsed, forcing a dangerous rescue mission. But miraculously, everyone survived. Finally, after a month of hell, the monitors showed the planet moving out of the asteroid field. The quakes began to lessen, and the energy storms subsided. Cautiously, Sarah led a team outside to survey the damage. The landscape was utterly transformed. Where there had been forests, now there were canyons. New mountains had formed, and strange crystals jutted from the ground. But their main structures had held. They had survived. As the colonists emerged, blinking in the light of the twin suns, a sense of awe and pride swept through them. They had faced the worst this planet could throw at them. And they were still standing. Sarah climbed to the top of a nearby hill and looked out at her people and their changed world. "We did it," she said softly. "We're still here." A cheer went up from the colonists. They had proven their strength and adaptability. Now it was time to rebuild and truly make this hostile world their home. The weeks following the great catastrophe were filled with hard work and new discoveries. Sarah and her team led the colonists in exploring their transformed world, always on guard for new dangers. One morning, Dr. Jones rushed into the command center, her eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, you need to see this," she exclaimed, waving a scanner in the air. Sarah followed her outside. Dr. Jones pointed to a cluster of strange, glowing crystals that had sprouted from the ground during the disaster. "These crystals," Dr. Jones explained, "they're giving off an energy signature I've never seen before. I think they might be able to power our entire colony." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "Are you sure? Is it safe?" Dr. Jones nodded eagerly. "From what I can tell, yes. We'll need to run more tests, but this could solve our energy problems." It was a ray of hope they desperately needed. Their power supplies had been dwindling, and they had been worried about making it through the planet's harsh winter season. As they discussed the potential of the crystals, a loud rumbling filled the air. The ground began to shake violently. "Everyone to the shelters," Sarah shouted, her voice carrying across the colony. But as they ran, a horrifying sight met their eyes. A massive crack was opening in the earth, right through the middle of their settlement. One of the domes teetered on the edge of the growing chasm. "There are people still inside," Marcus yelled, pointing to the endangered dome. Without hesitation, Sarah sprinted towards the dome. The ground buckled beneath her feet, nearly throwing her off balance. She could hear the screams of the trapped colonists. Reaching the dome, she pounded on the door. "Everyone out, now," she ordered. Terrified faces appeared as the door opened. Sarah helped them out one by one, urging them to run to safety. The crack in the earth was widening by the second. Just as the last person exited, the ground gave way. The dome, with Sarah still near its entrance, began to slide into the chasm. Sarah leaped, her fingers just catching the edge of solid ground. She dangled there, heart pounding, as the dome crashed into the depths below. Strong hands grabbed her arms, pulling her to safety. It was Marcus and Dr. Jones, their faces pale with fear. "That was too close," Marcus said, helping her to her feet. Sarah nodded, catching her breath. "Is everyone accounted for?" Dr. Jones checked her tablet. "Yes, all present and mostly unharmed. But we've lost a dome and all the supplies inside it." The quake finally subsided, leaving an eerie quiet in its wake. The colonists gathered, looking to Sarah for guidance. She stood tall despite the dirt and scrapes covering her. "We've faced worse and survived," she said firmly. "We'll rebuild, stronger than before. Dr. Jones has made a discovery that might help us with power. We'll find a way to cross this new canyon. This is our home now, and we won't let it defeat us." Her words sparked determination in the tired faces of her people. They had weathered the storm, but the challenge was far from over. Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly. They salvaged what they could from the fallen dome. Engineers designed a bridge to span the new canyon. Dr. Jones and her team figured out how to safely harness the power of the mysterious crystals. It wasn't easy. Food was scarce, and the work was hard. Strange new creatures emerged from the changed landscape, some friendly, others dangerous. The colonists had to learn quickly, adapting to each new challenge. But slowly, surely, they began to thrive. The bridge neared completion. The crystal power system came online, bringing light and heat to their homes. Seeds from their earth plants took root in the alien soil, promising future harvests. One evening, as the twin suns set, Sarah stood at the edge of the canyon. The colony bustled behind her, lights twinkling in the gathering dusk. She thought of the Shimmers and the other aliens who had fled. Would they be surprised to find humans still here when they returned? A smile tugged at her lips. They had done more than just survive. They were starting to make this harsh world their own. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Sarah was confident they would face them together. As stars began to appear in the alien sky, Sarah turned back to her colony. There was still much work to be done. 6 months had passed since the Great Catastrophe, and the human colony had begun to flourish despite the harsh conditions. Sarah stood at the edge of their settlement, surveying the alien landscape that was slowly becoming familiar. "Captain," Dr. Jones called, jogging up to her. "We've picked up some strange readings from the northern mountains. I think we should investigate." Sarah nodded, always eager to learn more about their new home. "Assemble a team. We'll leave at first light." The next morning, Sarah led a small group including Dr. Jones, Marcus, and 3 other colonists into the uncharted territory. They trekked through purple forests and across fields of shimmering grass that seemed to sing in the wind. As they neared the mountains, Marcus pointed to something in the distance. "Look, are those buildings?" Sarah squinted against the glare of the twin suns. In the shadow of the mountains, she could make out the faint outlines of structures unlike anything they'd seen before. "It looks like some kind of city," Dr. Jones said, excitement creeping into her voice. "But it's not shimmer architecture. This is something else entirely." They approached cautiously. The city, if it could be called that, was a maze of towering spires and graceful arches. But it was clearly abandoned, with signs of damage from the recent catastrophe. "This must have belonged to another alien species," Sarah mused, "one that left during the evacuation." As they explored the empty streets, they found workshops filled with strange tools and libraries packed with unknown symbols. It was a treasure trove of alien knowledge and technology. In one building, they discovered what looked like a massive computer system. It was still operational, glowing faintly in the dim light. Dr. Jones approached it, her eyes wide with wonder. "If we can figure out how to access this, who knows what we might learn." Suddenly, the ground began to shake. Another quake, not uncommon since the catastrophe. But this one felt different, more focused. "Everyone out," Sarah shouted. But as they turned to flee, the floor beneath them shifted. Hidden mechanisms whirred to life. And before they could react, the team found themselves descending into an underground chamber. The shaking stopped as abruptly as it had begun. They found themselves in a vast room filled with more of the alien technology. At its center stood a holographic projection of the planet. "It's some kind of control room," Marcus breathed. Dr. Jones was already examining the controls. I think this might be a terraforming system," she said in awe. "The aliens who lived here were trying to make the planet more stable." Sarah's mind raced with the implications. "Can we use it? Could this help us survive here long term?" Before Dr. Jones could answer, a noise from the shadows made them all freeze. Something was in the room with them. A figure emerged, tall and insectoid, with multifaceted eyes that gleamed in the dim light. It was clearly not a shimmer, but another alien species entirely. The creature raised its hands in what seemed to be a peaceful gesture. Then, to everyone's shock, it spoke in broken English. "Welcomes, humans," it clicked. "We are keepers. We stay to watch." Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding. You can speak our language." The alien nodded. "We learn. We watch Earth transmissions. Long time." "Are there more of you?" Marcus asked. "Few," the keeper replied. "Most go. We stay to protect planet, to help it heal." Sarah glanced at the terraforming controls, then back at the keeper. "Can you teach us? Help us understand this world better." The keeper's multifaceted eyes seemed to twinkle. "Yes, you stay when others go. You adapt. You learn. We teach." As the implications of this encounter sank in, Sarah felt a surge of hope. They had not only survived, but had now found allies and access to incredible technology. With this knowledge, they might truly be able to tame this hostile world. "We have so much to learn from each other," Sarah said, extending her hand to the keeper in a gesture of friendship. As human and alien clasped hands, a new chapter in their adventure began. The last species standing on this hostile planet had just taken a giant leap towards making it their true home. 1 year had passed since the humans' encounter with the keepers. The colony had transformed in ways Sarah could never have imagined. With the help of the insectoid aliens and their advanced technology, The humans had not just survived, they had begun to thrive. Sarah stood atop the newly constructed observation tower, gazing out at the bustling settlement below. The once harsh landscape now bloomed with a mix of earth plants and alien flora. Dome-shaped houses, built to withstand the planet's frequent quakes, dotted the area. In the distance, the terraforming station hummed, its energy field visible as a faint shimmer in the air. Marcus joined her, a tablet in his hand. "Latest report from Dr. Jones," he said. "The atmospheric adjustments are holding steady. We should be able to spend longer periods outside the dome soon." Sarah nodded, a smile playing on her lips. Who would have thought we'd come this far? Their conversation was interrupted by an excited shout from below. "Captain, you need to see this." They hurried down to find a crowd gathering around one of the experimental farms. Dr. Chen, their chief botanist, was beaming with pride as she held up a large, oddly shaped fruit. "It worked," she exclaimed. "We've successfully crossed an earth tomato with the native fruit the keeper showed us. It's packed with nutrients and can grow in this soil." The crowd cheered. It was another small victory, but each one meant so much. They were creating a new way of life, a blend of Earth and this alien world. As the excitement died down, Sarah's communicator beeped. It was a message from the keeper they had come to know as Click 7. "Humans, come quick." The message read, "Stars align. Time of return." Sarah's heart raced. She knew what this meant. The dangerous astronomical event that had forced the evacuation was coming to an end. The other aliens, including the Shimmers, would be returning soon. She gathered the colony's leadership team, and they made their way to the Keeper's hidden city. Click 7 met them at the entrance, its multifaceted eyes gleaming with what Sarah had learned to recognize as excitement. "Watch," it clicked, leading them to a large viewing screen. The screen lit up, showing the space around their planet. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then, one by one, ships began to appear. Dozens, then hundreds of vessels of all shapes and sizes emerged from hyperspace. "The evacuation fleet," Marcus whispered in awe. As they watched, a familiar ship design appeared. The Shimmers had returned. "What do we do?" Dr. Jones asked, turning to Sarah. Sarah straightened her shoulders. "We welcome them home," she said firmly. "And we show them what we've accomplished." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. As alien ships began to land, the humans worked alongside the keepers to prepare for the returnees. They set up welcome stations, prepared data packets about the changes to the planet, and made sure their own achievements were well documented. When the first Shimmer ship landed, Sarah was there to greet them. Silver, their old friend, was the first to emerge. It stopped short at the sight of the thriving human colony. Using their old sign language, supplemented by the translation devices the keepers had provided, Sarah explained all that had happened. Silver's metallic skin rippled with what Sarah now knew was astonishment. "You stayed," Silver signed. "You survived. You changed the world." Sarah nodded. "We did, and we'd like to share what we've learned. This planet is big enough for all of us." In the days that followed, delegations from various alien species visited the human colony. Many were impressed by how the humans had adapted, how they'd worked with the keepers to stabilize the planet. Some aliens chose to settle near the human colony, eager to share knowledge and resources. Others were more cautious, but respectful of what the humans had accomplished. As Sarah watched aliens and humans mingling in the colony's central plaza, she felt a sense of pride and hope. They had faced unimaginable challenges and come out stronger. They had turned a hostile planet into a home, not just for themselves, but for a diverse community of species. "You know," Marcus said, coming to stand beside her, "I think we can officially change the title of our story now." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Oh, to what?" Marcus grinned. "Humans, not the last species standing, but the first to bring everyone together on this once hostile planet." Sarah laughed. "It's a bit long, but I like it." She looked out at the scene before her, at the incredible future they were building. "I like it a lot."